Hello, how are you? You are here with us at Genealogy Quick Start, so you must be doing great. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Shamele Jordon. I am the host of this show. And what are we planning on doing today? So today we have two new, one key, one quick start for you. Widows, women are such a challenge sometimes to research because of life circumstances, not because of the women themselves. But Michael has a great four keys today to share with you. Windows into the widow, different ways that you can learn about the widow from the estate records of her deceased husband. And I'm doing a quick start. Yes, I'm doing a quick start. And we are going to talk about from published works to primary sources. We have to get to those primary sources, and there are lots of published sources, published works out there, like books and articles that can help you. So, where are you? We would love to know if you are watching, whether you are watching live or the recording. Let us know where you are. And if you're a member of a genealogy group, we would love to know what your group is, because there might be some genealogy souls out there that need saving. So let us know where you are. And just in case you did not know, you can watch Genealogy Quick Start on Philly Cam. It is a Philly Cam show. Or you can watch live on YouTube or Facebook. And we are so glad that you do. And who is this we that I am referring to? Yes, I am talking about the number one quick starters in the universe. Yes, I'm talking about columnist and editor James M. BEIDLER. Hey, hey. And genealogy tip of the day, Michael John NEILL. Hello.
Hello. Are we doing Neptunian research today, or is that next time, since we got this universe thing going on?
Look who we have
I
here
don't know.
today. Huh?
I was just going to
Neptune.
say we have the leading light of the universe here, Mr. J. Mark. Hello.
The leading light, live in Tennessee. Hello, Mark. Thank you so much for being here. Hello, Debbie Klein in Raleigh. We are so I wish I was in Raleigh. That's like one place that I could really be in right now. Raleigh is one of my dream spaces. Do you guys have any ancestors in North Carolina? I'm pretty sure Jim does not. How about you, Michael?
Virginia is as far south as mine go.
Is Virginia the South? Hello, Anita Payne in Fayette County, Tennessee. Hello, Cynthia Gully. Nice to have you here. So, they say that the Virginia really isn't the South. Is that true?
If you're a New Yorker, it's the South. We're gonna. everything is relative. Everything is relative.
Everything is relative. And we have June Richards Hall here from Shaker Heights, Ohio, AAGS Cleveland. Thank you so much for being here. Yes, Cynthia Gully is from Texas. Yes, we have to have Texas people here, because now we can start the show. We was waiting for somebody from Texas. Oh, we have our genealogy junkie. Hey, Jean from Collegeville, PA. And she is the member of many, many genealogy groups. Thanks for being here. So, Jim and Michael, you have a key today, 4 keys on one ancestor. And whose ancestor are we talking about today?
Well, we're talking about one of mine today. Christiana DeMoss Rampley is our focus today. From Maryland to Ohio. That's my early early 19th century, late 18th century, her lifespan. We don't have a death date or a birth date for her because of where she was born and where she died. She didn't go to a church that kept records or whatever. So, and the family Bible, if there was one, is gone. So she's one of those people in those places where I have a ballpark of when she was born. As you'll see, I've got a last alive date for her, and that's it.
I like that. Last alive date. We need to have a field for that.
LAD, it's the LAD.
So let's see, what is this key called? It is called Widows into the Widow. What's this all about, Michael?
Well, we gave it this title because some of the records related to her were created after her husband died and settling up his estate and some things of that type. But there's a little more to her than just what was in those probate records, although we are going to talk about that in terms of some of the questions I wanted to know about her life, because she did live at least probably 15 or 20 years after her husband. And so she's in his probate. There's some other records she's in as well. Her father's probate, which didn't get settled until 26 years after her father died. And then from a genealogy standpoint, we want that to happen. We want if we're going to be selfish, and let's admit it, we often are, we want as many records as possible. You want those. It's not fun if you're involved in it, but from our standpoint, it's great because the longer they drag out, heirs die, and there's more people named. There's just more details the longer it drags out.
Oh, I like that. Drag out that probate record.
Lawyers like that too, because that's more money for them, but that's a separate issue.
Yeah, you have some interesting things that I've absolutely never heard of when it comes to estate records. I had no idea that some of this stuff that you're going to share happens. And it still doesn't make sense to me, but I'm going to ask you again, and maybe you'll help me to make it make sense. So, are you ready for your windows into the widow? You look so serious, Michael.
I am. I thought
Michael,
you were asking the audience in general if they were ready, but yeah, we are we are good to go.
All right, let's get started with windows into the widow. And we are talking about Christiana. And so the first key that you brought up was that sometimes there is no birth or death date. Is that why you're talking about the last alive date?
That's why we're talking about the last alive date. I know she survived her husband. I also know when he died in 1823. I also know that the very last documentation in her father's estate settlement from 1836 in Harford County, Maryland, she's alive then because she's not listed as dead, and some other heirs are listed as dead. And that's the last alive date for her. I can't find a reference to her in the 1840 census. She could be there. She could be living. I've gone through all of her children's enumerations in 1840, and there's no woman in that, because if you remember right, 1840 only names the head of the household, and there's no woman of the right age to potentially be her in their households. She could have been with somebody else, but I kind of doubt it. And so that's the last alive date. I have no birth date for her because there's no church records that are extant that her family went to, if they did go to a church that kept those records. So all I know, she was married in January of 1800. So figuring she was around early 20ish at that point in time, that's allowing me to back into an approximate year of birth for her. Of course, I could also use her enumerations in 1810, 20, 30 to also ballpark for when she was born as well. But those are wide. If you're familiar with those pre-1850 census records, those ranges are kind of wide. So the narrowest one is that she was in her early, I'm assuming in her early 20s when she got married, which would be reasonable at that time and place.
Yes, like 55 to 90, like, you know, you guys. All right. So I love all of these different ways that you kind of get to, you know, it's not there, but it's not the end of the world. Key number 2 is that estate accountings can clarify relationships. You want to dive into that a little?
Her father's 1820 will in Harford County, Maryland, was a tad bit vague in terms of the relationship to his children. And there were 2 ways, we'll see the text of it a little bit later, but there were 2 schools of thought on how to interpret that the individuals he named were his children and the individuals that he named were his grandchildren. And it just wasn't clear. And we may get frustrated when we see a document like that that's unclear and think, how could a lawyer do that, blah, 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 blah. But we've got to remember, in the context of the time, the family all knew what was meant. You know, it was clear to them. They weren't worried about us. But that was the case. So even though the will could be read one of 2 ways, the estate accountings where they're bumping out the money to people, that makes it crystal clear who's children and who were grandchildren. There's no, you know, when you look at where the money goes, that usually cleans up ambiguities like that. Not always, but most of the time it does.
Always follow the money, right?
That's true today, and it's been true for a long time without going into that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
All right. Key number, and we'll share some documents in a second. Key number 3 is to leverage unusual names. I love those unusual names, but often they turn out not to be so unusual.
Well, right. And you always want to remember that a name that you think is unusual might not be that unusual. I know early in my research, I discovered I had an Aunt Jemima in Maryland. Turns out I had 3 of them. That was a common name this was in the 1700s and very early 1800s. And it was a common name. I thought, well, that was unusual when I found the first one, and boom, boom, boom. I just keep finding them. So it was more common than I thought. Christiana is a little less common than that, but it's not super rare. But it can be a clue, because it isn't like an Elizabeth or a Sarah or something of that nature. And, you know, there's some in her grandmother's maiden name was Ramsey. And I think that based on some Christianas in that family, I think that's where the name comes from. And there were some other individuals that at first I wasn't going to research because they had the last name of Ramsey, and that's not the most unusual name. But it turns out in one of those families, they named a couple of daughters and a granddaughter or what have you, Christiana. So I thought, I mean, it's, you know, we want to be good in analyzing our evidence. That's very circumstantial, but it was a hint to me that I should research those people first, because that's a coincidence, you know. And some people say there's no such thing as a coincidence. Once in a while, there are in genealogy coincidences. You always got to remember that. But it's a lead, and you want to research any lead. If it had been Elizabeth, that'd have been a different scenario. But the name was a little bit uncommon.
Yeah, in our family, one of the names is Melanie's. I've never heard that name before, but that is how they will know in the future that they have the right family, because each generation in this one branch will have Melanie's, spelled in like 10 different ways, but you know, it's the same.
You've got to have different ways to spell it.
All right. This is my favorite key, and this is the one that is breaking my brain, is that widows may buy their household goods. Michael, what the hell is going on?
Okay, numero uno, do not blame the messenger for this. I want to make that abundantly clear. But what happened, and it wasn't just Ohio that had this happen in 1823 when Christiana's husband's estate's being settled. Other locations did it too. But as the 19th century went on, various women's property acts changed this a little bit. But at the point in time when Christiana's husband died, to pay bills and do whatever and settle the estate, all the chattel property, and of course they're a married couple, and in this time period, their property was Thomas's property, and their property could go to pay his bills upon his death. And so what happened was within a short amount of time after he died, there was a sale of everything: household goods, the farm equipment, the livestock, whatever, you name it. All the chattel property was sold, in theory, to go to debts. And so Christiana is buying some of the household goods from her husband's estate. And that was typical for the time period for that to happen. So it's not unusual. Later
So I used
state statute would change and say the widow gets so much of the chattel property of the household, either a cash amount or certain items that may be dictated in state statute to help her and the children live for a year or 6 months or whatever. But at this point in time, that was not the case. It went to pay his debts. Now, in this case, it didn't happen, but in others, I've seen where additionally, where the widow had to buy the property from the estate of her husband, when you compare what she paid to what it was inventoried at, the valuation of it in the inventory, it's pennies on the dollar. I can think of a case in Missouri where this happened in 1860, Civil War era. And when I looked at Charlotte was the widow in that case, she bought stuff from her husband's estate. It's pennies on the dollar. When somebody else bought it, it's reasonably close to what it was inventoried at. But in that case, the law said this is what has to happen, and you have to follow, that's the way it is. You got to follow the procedure. But in that case, what I think happened, Christiana, the one we're talking about, she paid pretty much what it was worth. Where she got the cash, I don't know. Separate issue. Okay. But the one in Missouri, when she paid, was pennies on the dollar. And the joke I make is, all the men there had shotguns, and when the widow raised her hand, she wanted to bid. Y'all put your hand down, or we're going to take care of you. Because they did need some money to pay the bill. She didn't buy everything, but what she bought was for pennies on the dollar, and that was they were doing it legally, if you catch my drift. But many times there's a workaround if you're clever.
Yeah, that could very well be the case. I mean, earlier than the examples we're talking about in 1700s Pennsylvania, I see wills that itemize everything the widow's going to get of personal property. And my understanding is that because according to law, she wouldn't get anything unless it was actually in the will. And then second half of the 19th century in Pennsylvania, I see a lot of estate settlements where, now these are obviously folk on the poorer side, but that there was some sort of dollar amount that if you were under that amount, the widow could just say, oh yes, the movables were under this amount and the widow's getting them. And I think, just like you said about the shotguns at the sale, I think there might have been some winks and nudges that, we're not looking too closely on what the values are going to be. We're just going to say, yep, widow gets it.
Because those widows awards in the 18th century become more and more prevalent. Sometimes if you go and read state statute, which is highly scintillating, by the way, but if you read state statute, it is. Sometimes when you get late enough, it will indicate exactly what items she was to get. So much large, so much this, the spinning wheel. And if they didn't have those things in the household, then she was to get the cash equivalent. And that was.
So, Michael, where's a great place to find those statutes?
You could do a Google search. That'd be the first place to start. Do a Google, look for, Ohio statutes, 19th century. There's some other cataloging of links that I can't remember the site, so we're not going to mention those because I can't remember the titles precisely. But you probably find a bibliography or a list of links that would direct you to a list of contemporary state statutes that would tell you, what the process was at that point in time. But at the point in time when we're talking about with Christiana here, everything had to be sold, and that's one of the examples we'll see is what she's buying from her deceased husband's estate.
So now it makes sense to me why in the will would say, I give to my wife all of my worldly goods. And I'm like, Why are they saying that? Because it's hers anyway, because you're dead. And so you're telling me why it says that.
Because otherwise the creditors could, creditors could come after it would be the main reason to do that.
So let's see what you got here.
This is the will of her father from 1820 in Harford County. And this is a little small, boy, I need my magnifying glass on that. But he says, my daughter and son, William DeMoss, he lists, and then he lists some kids. And then he says William DeMoss's children, and then he lists some more people. Well, when he wrote William DeMoss's children in his will, he meant them as a group because William was dead. And then he goes on naming his other children by name. But what some individuals thought is after it says William DeMoss's children, it has that phrase, it's naming his children. It's naming William's children. Mm-hmm. But it's not. It's naming John's children. There were two schools of thought on that. And as we see in the accountings, I hope are what's coming up next.
Let's see.
It makes the relationships clear. This is the first one. This is just part of it. Christiana is there. This is the one from 1833. I believe she's getting, I think that's $50-some, a little bit small on my screen here. That's the first one. It lists her as one of the children of the deceased. So she's John's daughter. And then the next one, there's another one where they finished up settling the estate. This one's from 1836. And this is her last alive date, the last document where she's listed. And then it again says to Christiana, one of the children, $31, I think, and 48 cents. This was again in the Harford County, Maryland probate records. But as you can see, it took quite a while for that estate to be settled. He died in 1820. The will was probated, pretty sure in 1821. And then it's, 25 years later before they're finally settling up with the estate.
Well, what is happening that causes that, for it to take so long?
I'm not sure why it took so long in this case. In some cases, you're waiting for children who were heirs to reach the age of majority so that guardians don't have to be appointed. If they're the age of majority when they settle up, they can sign any settlement documents in their own name. But if you're wanting to settle up the estate and maybe do some deeds or whatever to get everything cleaned out, and one of the heirs is 15 years old, then he or she cannot legally sign any documents and would have to have a guardian appointed. And sometimes the heirs don't want to go through that hassle and process, so they just wait until the heirs have all aged out and are old enough, and then they settle up. But this one's gone on 25 years. Unless there was an heir born after John died, that could be potentially why. I'm not sure why it took quite so long in this case, unless they were squabbling over money or the price of the farm or whatever. But this is still quite a while to be dragging that out.
Yeah, that is a long time.
It's a long time. It's a long time. This is Christiana's 1830. This is the only census where she appears as the head of a household. Her husband's been dead 7 years at this time. So this is her entry. She's got herself, 4 daughters, and then the 2 boys that are there. Her name is spelled a little bit janky. I love how it got indexed at Family Search. The last name got transcribed as RMPLY. The A.
What?
They missed the A there. It just said RMPLY. Took me a little while to find it, to be really honest with you. The name at the tippy top of this screenshot, I love the way this is spelled. That man up there is her brother. And that is one of my favorite misspellings of DeMoss.
That's supposed to be Rampley?
No. Rampley is for Christiana. The man at the tippy top, it's her brother, last name DeMoss.
Gotcha.
And I thought it was funny because it gives me a clue how they say it. John Day Moss. Because if you look, it's DAYMOS. That's a double S. And so that gives me a clue. Day Moss was how he said it, I'm guessing. So Day Moss was how it got spelled, but I rarely see it spelled that way. That I just thought that was a funny way to spell it.
Yes, that is neat.
Here's the list of things she purchased from her husband's estate sale in 1823. An iron pot. She's buying the bedsteads, a bottle and a glass, something of iron there, a loom it looks like, and some other basic household items for a total of $19.19. And 19 cents. I should have had a bigger image of that for me to look at to see what she's spending $11 on. But those are the household items that she had to purchase. What I also should have included, but I didn't, her son, who at the time would have been 20 years old and who was still living at home because he didn't get married until 1830, her oldest son also purchased some items at the sale. Presumably for them to use at home is what I'm guessing. And that didn't click for me until right now at this precise moment. I've forgotten that he was 20 when his dad died, but he wasn't on his own. So James, the son, also purchased, I'm guessing, some items for them to use. I'd have to go back and look and see what he purchased, but it wasn't just his mother. It was him also, I'm assuming, purchased some items as well. And you never know. There are some. There's a son-in-law that purchased some things. He also could have been buying them for her as well. You just don't know what money is going trading hands behind. You buy that when we do whatever in the fall. I'll pay you back. You know what I mean? Those are little agreements you don't know because they're not written down.
I like those little agreements. That's what makes it fun. So, Michael, were there any other possibly bonuses about widows and estates that you did not share that you might want to share now? Or Jim, any estate record like keys to think about when you're doing them? Jim's like, look.
The other thing, another reason for going through all the records is sometimes that can be a clue the widow married somebody else after her husband died. Christiana didn't. But, if she had married somebody else, she would have been listed with that different last name. And that can be helpful in places where there aren't marriage records. Ohio has marriage records in this time period, but other states do not. And that could be a place to get a clue as to her to her marriage. So if you see the widow with a different last name, don't assume it's an error. You would probably be thinking about her having gotten remarried at some point.
She wasn't waiting. She had stuff to do. She had a life to live.
Well, and some widows had to get married, others did not. Christiana, her oldest son and another son were old enough to help with the farm work. So she might not have needed a man, if you will, to run the farm. So because she never did remarry. So I'm assuming the boys were able to take care of things well enough that she didn't, and there was enough money, she didn't feel the need to remarry. Other widows were not in that position.
Go Christiana. And what was the husband's name? He talked about the widow.
Well, I left his name out on purpose because typically in genealogy, we always find, it's the woman who's mystery name, never named. So we're leaving him out for now. His name is Thomas.
Okay.
His name was Thomas Johnson Rampley, and he used his middle name, which was not always the most common thing in this time period, but he signs it in various documents, Thomas Johnson Rampley. And speculation as to where that comes from is probably his grandmother's maiden name, but that's speculation because it was not his mother's maiden name.
Gotcha. We don't have to speculate about these keys. Here they are. Windows into the widow. Key number 1 is sometimes there's no birth or death date. Key number 2 is that estate accountings can clarify relationships. Key number 3 is to leverage unusual names. And key number 4, I forgot to laugh about Aunt Jemima. That's quite funny, Michael. Key number 4 is widows may buy their household goods. Michael, Jim, thank you. One of you guys going to stay with me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. I'm gonna kick you out for a second though.
All
Thank
right.
you for your keys and bye.
All right.
All right, give me 1 second to split the show. All right, welcome back to our quick start for today. Let us bring in. Oh, Mark said that you guys were scintillating. Like, I've never heard anyone say you guys were scintillating. Let me bring. Wait a minute. Where did Michael go? Here he comes. Hey, Jim. Michael, didn't Michael say he was going to stay?
I didn't hear him say that, and I just want to
Oh.
go on the I just want to go on the record that if I had known J. Mark Lowe was going to tune in, I would have brought out my friend of J. Mark Lowe T-shirt
I know, me too. But mine, I don't know. I gotta find it.
I was looking through my T-shirt drawers and I came across it recently. So
we want to say hi to those who came in after I said hello to everyone. Hello, Joseph Jordan. Are we related? Hi, Cynthia Cruz. Nice to have you from Topeka, Kansas, Topeka Genealogical Society. Ed Enslaved at Oakley. Hello, Mr. Roby. And did I say hi to Cassie? I did not. Hello, Cassie from Cleveland, Ohio. We have Paula from down the street, West Deptford. Hello, Paula. We miss you. Hi, Valerie Ann, Philly area, GSP for the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania, and my Barber County, Alabama research buddy, Emily Davis in Pittsburgh. Yes, welcome everyone. So, Jim, I am having fun researching these families I'm not used to doing research in the areas that you research in, like the late 1700s, early 1800s is all foreign to me. But what I've learned is that these published sources can be quite useful. So that is what I wanted to quick start today is from published works to primary sources. So is that true, Jim? Like during this time period, like this is kind of like one of the ways you kind of like grip onto some stuff because it's really hard in that time.
well, exactly, and of course, a lot of times they have been published in some form or abstracted, extracted, and getting back to those primaries. It's not impossible. Sometimes it's difficult. And sometimes you will have several different versions of that on over time in print. So then even more, you want to get back to that actual primary document. What's it really say?
Yes, exactly. Thank you. So let's see what we have here. He doesn't know if we're related yet. I keep meeting people with all my surnames. So let's go ahead and get started with our quick start from published works to primary sources. So, what's the story here? I am researching a family called the Wilsons, and they're in Swedesboro, Gloucester County, New Jersey. And they are connected to a church, and it is Mount Zion AME Church in Swedesboro. And so, this is a difficult period to research, but this church happens to be on the National Register of Historic Places. And I think that's one untapped place for doing genealogy research because the built environment has people attached to it, right? They're always going to talk about people who were involved with it, which happened to be this family. So one suggestion I would make is to look through the National Historic Register for your county and for your locations to see if who's being mentioned. Possibly their relatives, your ancestors, or just the community.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So let's go, let's look at, so step number one, I say, is to obtain a published source of interest. So one of them is the National Register. And another one is this book. A book is a published source. Maybe I'm gonna get it. Maybe
Almost
not.
had it there.
It was doing it. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Stratton Hall, A House with a Name, and I don't know if I can get the author in there. Maybe, maybe not. But her name is Joanne A. Loughlin. So when we talk about published sources, we're talking about books, articles. What else, Jim? Websites.
Well, any websites, sure. Anything that is not an original contemporaneous document is generally going to be a published source.
So Jim, where's kind of, I like of course Google Books, Internet Archive. Are there any places that you'd like to go for articles or books online?
Well, those are two of the most popular ones. JSTOR for journal articles. That's a good one.
That's a great one. And Hathi Trust. I always forget about Hathi.
Yeah. Yep.
Am I saying it right? Is it Hathi?
I don't know if it's Hathi or Hathi.
All right. So find a source of interest. And then what you want to do is review the published source for any mentions of primary sources. And of course, for your people, what are they saying in there? And then the third step would be, oh, go ahead, Michael. I mean, Jim.
Whoever I am. So yeah, I was just going to point out that this is where you work both the bibliography, which is almost always at the end of the work, and then either footnotes or endnotes. Because while everything cited also should be in the bibliography, where it's in footnote or endnote form, that's where it's being tied to a specific fact. And you may be able to winnow down what other documents, or sometimes it's going to be other books and publications. So you may have to go through this process several times over till you get back to a primary source. But it's going to be worthwhile.
Most definitely. So my screen just went super tiny. So step number 3 is, Jim, what's step number 3? Because I cannot see my screen right now.
It says create a list of primary sources to obtain. And presumably that is from the publication or publications that you've been looking at. And like I was just referencing, sometimes you're going to have to go through several iterations of published sources before you get back to the reference to the actual document. Or one book may reference the document but not give you the best source for it. So you got to go through everything published that mentions it.
Exactly. So you create that list, and step 4 is to go find those primary sources. And one of my favorite places, especially for this time period, has been Family Search, Full Text Search. It's been amazing. Yeah. And step 5, of course, is to analyze your documents and your findings. So this is the beautiful little church, Mount Zion AME Church, and this is their cute. Oops, what happened? This is their cute little church, and they happen to be on the register, the National Register, probably the state register as well. I'm not sure where to get the registration forms for the state, but those are probably at the archives, and those will be good as well. And so This is part of the register. In the register, I don't know how many of you have had a chance to look at them, but they have a section like a narrative of history, talks about the architecture of the building, and then it talks about its historical significance. And here's one where they're saying that in 1799, the members of this church decided to incorporate as a Methodist society and congregation. And, you know, Jim talked about looking at those footnotes, and this is the little footnote down here, Libra M3, that's the book, and then the page numbers, and then the county courthouse. And so what did I do? I went to full text search and I looked for this. And here's just another reference saying that they incorporated in 1799. And so here it is on full text search, showing that, yeah, it's tiny, that 30 families, they voted in 3 trustees, Doran Wilson and James Murray, as well as James James. Does anybody know anyone today with the same first name as the same last name? That is wild. James James. Your name is Jim Jim. James Jim. Maybe you could be Jim James. That's kind of a cool name, Jim James. And this is just the rest of it, kind of showing you what was happening with them. And so, you know, you have all those names. And so I would look all those people up as well. This is another reference that they have in there talking about their cemetery. They're saying, and in 1831, that Daniel White purchased property from Ishmael Duffield. And so, and then this Doran Wilson, who was one of the trustees for the church, was a witness. And so Ishmael and Doran happen to be brother-in-laws. We know this from the research. But it was cool to be able to get the deed. And so again, I went to Family Search, full text search, and here it is. Has the people in here. And you know what I love about deeds, Jim?
What do you love about deeds, Shamele?
Genealogy and deeds, when they tell you, you know, who they got the land from and who had the land before them. That's such useful information. Yeah. Yeah. So the next thing we found out about this Wilson family from this National Register is that there are Civil War soldiers buried here, and 2 of them are Wilsons, Stephen Wilson and Benjamin Wilson. And so I wanted to find out more about them. What were they? Were they in the Navy? Were they USCTs? And here in the register, it tells us this person, this historian, did a great job. Found out that they were in the Navy. Stephen Wilson was in the Navy, as well as, I don't know how to say that. Is that Glauca? I've never even heard of that ship. Glaucus, USS Glaucus.
I'm going to say Glaucus. Yeah.
Glaucus, USS Glaucus. I don't even know what a Glaucus is. Is it a place? Is it an animal? Like, what is it? And then Benjamin was also there, and I can't see. That is Negus.
The USS Negus.
Negus. Are ships named after locations? Like, what are these places? I don't know.
That goes way beyond me. Glaucus, I think, is like a Greek mythology name, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, I got to look that up. So the one thing that's sad, one thing that was hard about them is that they're Navy guys. And so one, they did not, I looked for their pension index card. Like that's the first thing that you should probably do in addition to their compiled military service record, but they're Navy guys. And so I needed to have more like Navy records, and those were, they didn't show up at all on fold 3. So I'm thinking that they probably did not get pensions. And so I need to take a trip down to the National Archives and pull those rendezvous reports. And I don't know what other things are pretty cool for Navy. If you guys know what else is cool, all I know is rendezvous reports. You have to go from one rendezvous to the next, and it's painful. Jim, you have any Navy guys?
I have a Coast Guard guy named Michael Strauss. That's the guy you need to get in touch with. So.
That's good. You're so funny. Yes, Michael Strauss is quite helpful in the world. The other thing is that we knew they had this cemetery. And so I went to our favorite cemetery place, which is fold 3, and I searched for Wilsons. How many Wilsons are buried there? And so there were, it looks like 6. And of course, I was able to then pull some of their headstones. So here we have Stephen Wilson, who happens to be the son of the trustee Doran. This is his wife down here, Rosetta. And then on the other side, I believe is his son, Benjamin. And I'm not sure who Henrietta W. is, but she married Moses White. So there you have it. I didn't check billion graves. The other thing that they said is that this church is located in an African-American settlement called Small Gloucester. And you know what we love, Jim? Maps. And so this calls for a map, right?
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Where do you like to go for your maps, Jim?
Oh, well, just start with Google Maps, but something I realized when you were talking about Woolridge Township and your last slide said it. This is right near Route 3322, which I've gone by this place, a zillion times coming back from the Jersey Shore. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes. So I decided to go to my favorite map place, which is Rumsey, David Rumsey. And I searched for Gloucester County. Usually you do things at a county level. And here's a cool map that we got for Gloucester. And small. So here's Woolridge Township. And it says the church. It has the church here, colored ME. And so, of course, you keep looking. You don't just get one map and say, hey, I'm done. You keep looking. And so this one is 1848, 9, and it's a land ownership map. So this isn't just any kind of map. This is a cool A map. And I found another one for, and I don't have the year here. I think it's 1876. And what's great about this map is it actually shows Small Gloucester, right? This is a Black enclave. You would think, oh, no one's, paying attention, but you will find, I found it at least in New Jersey, you find that they list these small settlements. And then also it shows the church, it shows the cemetery. I think I have to find out about this map, but I think they might have a whoops here because they have 2 Black churches on the same road, and I don't know if there are 2 on that road. But what's also listed here is the trustee. I never knew that they would do that for the church. I would thought they would just have the church name, but they also have the trustee, Doran Wilson, listed here as well. So let's see. I think my maps are, oh no, I had more. So tax ratables, this is for you, Jim. tax ratables. It is so fun looking at these tax ratables, but it talks about, this is really kind of just talking about the fact that there was slavery in New Jersey, and that in Woolwich Township, that these men had enslaved people in 1770 and 1780. And the way they know this is tax ratable records. And so where did I go, Jim? Family search. And this is an example of a tax ratable. And this was one of the guys that was listed there. And it's showing in this column that I highlighted on the right that he had 25 enslaved people in the year of this, what's it, 1780, looks like. And so, yes, there was slavery in New Jersey. People they kind of forget about that. But yeah, slavery in New Jersey. So yeah, those are, oh, Mark told us that Glaucus was Greek mythology sea god. So that's a good name for USS ship, sea god. You was right, Jim. Jim, I know you know everything. Like, you pretend like you didn't know, but you know stuff.
Sometimes it takes a while to retrieve it. That's all.
So let's look at these steps from published works to primary sources. Step 1, go ahead and obtain a published work that you're interested in. Step 2 is to review the public sources for mentions of primary sources. Step 3, create a list of primary sources to obtain. Step 4, you want to search for those sources. And step 5, you want to analyze and document findings. There's one source that I did not talk about, which is freaking phenomenal. And it came from this book, Stratton Hall, Church Records. The family that had originally enslaved these Africans got them baptized at Trinity Church. And so this time I went to Ancestry. Ancestry has Pennsylvania and New Jersey church and town records, and they had them in there. So I was able to pull those records as well from a published source that told me about them, and I was able to go to Ancestry and pull the record and get the full deal. So yeah.
That's great.
Any final words, Jim? Oh, she told me, thank you, Cynthia. She looked up Stephen, and it said that he was listed in the Soldier and Sailors database. That is like one of my favorite places in the world to go if you do not know about the Civil War Soldier and Sailor database on the National Park Service, nps.gov website. Check it out. It lists the regiments, the ships. It also has the history on where they went. So if you have an ancestor, you can know exactly where they went. Thank you for that, Cynthia. That was phenomenal. You know what else is phenomenal? You, Jim. Thank you so much for being here. And you out there, thank you for watching. We really, really appreciate you coming. And get out there and find those ancestors. Thank you so much.